index and page numbers. That's really all it comes down to. So this is a Commonplace Book. It's a binder. So I'm going to set this down now. But yeah, index and page numbers. What's going on there? Well, in a book, everything stays in one place. So it makes sense to number the pages. But when you're looking at a binder, the pages will move around. So it doesn't really make any sense to write down the page numbers. And if you don't have page numbers, why do you have an index? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So this is the Commonplace Binder 101 playlist. We're on video number 51, which means we're more than halfway through, which is awesome. This is the video title, and this is the last thing we're going to talk about today. So we're going to go through this one column at a time, and then we'll be done. So yeah, index and page numbers. That's the main difference between a book and a binder. If you're talking about like a Commonplace Book or a Commonplace Binder. Technically, Commonplace Binder doesn't exist. That's just something I made up for this playlist. So hopefully it makes it easier to communicate the ideas, and I will be able to talk about it, and you will be able to understand it. Let's move on to the next thing. So, Commonplace Book. Okay, what is a Commonplace Book? Well, before computers existed, we still needed to write things down. So a Commonplace Book would basically be where someone kept all their notes as their commonplace. So one of the most common ways to do this would just be to read a bunch of books, like in a library, because most people didn't own like 100 books, and they would write down their favorite quotations from those books, the name of the book, where they found the book, sometimes the page on which the thing was written, and yeah, it would just be whatever they found the most important, and then they would move on to the next book. And they would look at their Commonplace Book whenever they needed exact information on something. But when it comes to exact information, written words on paper aren't super useful compared to all the information being preserved perfectly on your computer or phone or tablet or anything else. Because the stuff can be, distributed very easily and transfer into a whole bunch of different forms, so people don't really use a Commonplace anymore unless they want to be very traditional about it in whatever way they want that to be. So it might be they're a religious scholar, or they're just really, really against screens and technology. It could be they live in a place where they just don't have reliable internet connection. And so it's really good to have the paper because, they don't need to connect to the internet to access the paper. How to switch? Right now I'm switching between unzipped and zipped because it's a little cold right now. I think it's raining outside. And that switch is about as dramatic as the switch between a book and a binder in terms of how much effort you have to put in. Because basically, for a book, you just write it down, and then for a binder, you just write it down, but you have the ability to move it. So you could do it the exact same way. That'd be fine. I mean, you'd have to hole punch the pages. And what else? Well, I would say to add tabs, because that way you could more quickly find the stuff, but other than that, there's no real need to do anything different. Obviously, if you're using one method for one thing, and then you start doing a different thing, or you start using a different item, I mean, it makes sense to switch it up a little bit. So if you go from a book to a binder, you will probably change things around a little bit, but really, it's not a really difficult thing. So how to switch? When you finish your book, because, books have limited space, you just do the rest of your stuff from now on in a binder. That's... It's really not that difficult. Use fewer books. So, if you switch from a Commonplace Book to a Commonplace Binder, you're going to use fewer books, right? Well, I mean, I guess you won't spend as much money on the binding, but people normally don't buy all the book pieces and then assemble them. Normally we would just get a book, because why would someone go through all the trouble of making a book? Now, some people still do that, and, it's a hobby or a profession or whatever, but really, what I'm looking at here is use fewer books when it comes to your sources. So, if you're using a book as probably going to take a little bit longer to put everything in there, because everything has to be super well calculated and intentional, because it's like, how much space do I need for a content section? Well, in a binder, you don't need to think about that, because you'll just make it up as you go along. But for a book, it's like, is it 2 pages? Is it 3 pages? Is it 4 pages? Might even be longer than that. Probably not. I assume if you're working in a book, it's probably going to be like 3 pages at most. I don't know. And if you're really worried about it, just leave more space. But that's kind of frustrating, because you're going to have all this extra space, and then you're going to have to figure out how to fill in the space or leave it blank, and you don't have to do any of those unnecessary calculations in a binder. Now, the binder won't look as good, and the binder can break, and like a lot of things can go wrong. But I mean, realistically, why are you going to be dropping your binder? Why are you going to be, doing all of these things which are a huge problem in the first place? Like, it's just not really necessary. So I'm just going to move on, because I don't really know what to say about this. So, what you love. So, I like to write down things that I actually enjoy. And sometimes that's something I said, rather than something somebody else said. And so that's not technically how to do the specific process of a commonplace book. But, like, this is not a homework assignment. If this were a homework assignment, it would be an assignment by myself, to myself, to go through my stuff. Not to do it in a specific way. Like, that would be kind of silly. So, novel commonplace. So is this a commonplace about novels, or is this a commonplace that is unique or done differently? Well, I don't know. But I would say that, if you're switching from a book to a binder, it's going to be a little bit different. Mixed opinions. Now, some people will probably say binder's not a great idea, because the rings are in the middle and they will get really annoying and it's going to be hard to write in. And so the best way to work in a binder is to take the things out when working on them. But that means someone needs to have a space to work. So it might be you try to switch to it, but it doesn't really work out because you do all your work on the bus. And on a bus, it's a lot better to have a book than a binder, because this stuff's just going to move around in a totally different way, and it'll be kind of annoying. And there's no need risking all of your pages flying everywhere. So, some people might have some other stuff about this. If you want to share them, just leave them in the comments down below, but I'm going to move on to the personal project part. So, why am I doing all of this? Well, we're halfway through the playlist, and I've definitely mentioned this a lot of times before, but the 2025 playlist is helping me prep for 2026. So the Commonplace binder is part of my Commonplace diploma project. And so what I will be doing in that is I will be talking about, future education, information management, all the stuff that we've been talking about so far. But I will be doing so specifically around creating an education system which is different than the one we have now. So it's about education reform, and that is the main personal project. The project the year after that, I'm not really sure which one I'm going to go with, but I have a lot of these, okay? And the information in them is fairly unique, because I've been, at the very least collecting information since 2015. And so before that, I had all my school notes. And, before that I was thinking. So I have a lot of stuff. And so what I think will happen is 2025 will be the rest of this playlist. 2026 will be the postgrad year as the Commonplace diploma. And then, what are we on? 2027 now? That's crazy. That's so far into the future. That'll probably be the Vetocracy project. It might be pronounced Vetocracy, because it's about a society of a veto, basically. Like, everyone can say no. But we can talk about that later. Journal. This is hilarious. Journal, as far as I can tell from the first 16 videos which are out, you guys hate that. At least when I title a video with anything that has journal in it. It's really funny. The videos do terribly. And I don't really want to make videos on journals in the first place. I consider my thing to be slightly different than a journal. So it's kind of nice. The journal's not getting the attention it deserves. So, sorry, journal. Diary. So, am I going to write down in my diary that I dissed my journal? Well, I don't really have a diary. I don't really have a journal. I guess I have like a log that I keep where I write stuff down roughly once every 3 days. But that's mostly just like whatever's going on. So, I don't know. You could say that's a journal. Maybe that's a diary. Codex, what is that? So in the videos before this playlist, I would often tell people like, hey, I'm going to be making Commonplace Binder videos. And I was making Commonplace Book videos beforehand. So I'm trying to differentiate myself by saying binder instead of book. But, you know, if you're going to make videos on this and you want to make your stuff stand out, just so you know, I'm going to be making a lot of videos on binder. So, like, if you want to have a unique title, probably don't use binder. Like, you can use binder, it's fine. But, like, it's going to be a little weird if we're making videos which are different than the normal ones, and then they're the exact same after that. But, you know, whatever. I just think Codex would be a lot cooler, because then you could, like, make up your own name and then run with that. So, I don't know. Maybe there's a Commonplace Journal channel, because there are probably some people who like that specifically. Maybe Commonplace Diary. I don't know. Like, probably not Commonplace Planner. Maybe. But I think there actually is something for Common Planner. That might be a channel name, though. I don't know. So, planner. Differences between a book and a binder. What does a planner have to do with this? Well, if you put a planner in a Commonplace Book, you're going to cross the stuff out because you're going to get to the stuff really quickly, and then it's just going to sit there, and you can't do anything with it. Now, this is one of the main benefits of having a binder. When the thing no longer serves you, you can just get rid of it, which is great. Or you could update it. Obviously, you could have it be like a 90-day section. So, like, you just write down like 4 months worth of stuff, you know, because it's very rare that you're going to have exactly 30 days in each month. And you're just going to be all the way at the beginning, and you're going to be able to go through like that. Like, it's probably going to be 4 months worth of stuff. And so if you do that, you can just change the stuff out. Like, you can cycle through it. It's like not a problem at all. But with the book, you're going to have to do all the stupid calculations, and that's really annoying. So unless you want to look back on your old planners like 20 years from now, that doesn't make any sense. Specific way. Is there a specific way to do this in a Commonplace Book or a Commonplace Binder? Well, there are a lot of books, or there are a lot of videos on Commonplace Book on YouTube. I would say roughly 500 as of when I collected all this data. So I believe that was, oh my gosh, was that 2024 or 2023? It was so long ago. I think I actually did most of the collecting in 2023. I have been doing this for so long. Yeah, I don't know. Specific way. Is that the one I just did? I don't know. I gave myself a little bit of an existential crisis thinking about how long I've been doing this. Oh, man. Yeah, so. Free flowing. We're just going to relax. I'm going to alter my hair a little bit. Yeah. Look at that. We're just going to do whatever we want. We're going to pick the thing up. We're going to put it down. It's free flowing. No, what are you going to do when it comes to free flowing thoughts? Well, you're just going to write them out. So, technically, if we had one more thing here, it would probably be like a brain dump. You just want to write your stuff down, dump out all your thoughts, and then look through it later to figure out which thoughts are actually valuable, which thoughts you want to expand on, and which thoughts you're just not going to save. Because why would you do that? I find that when I'm working in a book, it's actually kind of hard to write this stuff down, because this is all about limited space. It's supposed to be like your finest work ever collected. Whereas the binder is like, you put stuff in and you take stuff out. And it's not as permanent, but, you know, it's very manageable. intrigued to know. Where did I get this little bit of information from? I believe I was on Twitch around 2019, and I joined a chat. I said something, and the guy was like, well, he said my username, but he was like, it's a very interesting username. I don't know what it means. I'm very intrigued to know. And so I think I paraphrased that a little bit. So I think it was about a mushroom gathering channel from around Philadelphia, but I don't know the exact name. So it was just like a random place I popped into. This is related to what he said. And so sometimes you'll write things down in a book or a binder and you won't have the proper source. And you'll be looking at it like, I'm very intrigued to know where this came from. What does this have to do with anything? And just like the guy whose chat I joined, sometimes the answer is very obvious. So the username I had at that point was so obviously related to something else just written out in a whole bunch of words that his whole chat was like, this. Like, everybody got it right, like 5 people in a row. And he made a pretty funny face afterwards. But yeah. Mess up rings. Uh-oh. What happens if you drop your ring binder? Probably nothing. Now, it might be that you drop it down a flight of stairs, and then it'll probably get messed up, or, in a puddle, or off a roof. And yeah, that's going to cause a problem. But that would cause a problem for a book, too. So, like, the main problem with a binder is, like, you might just, like, flip it off your desk like a cat. It's like, whoosh. I don't know. It's kind of heavy, though. So, like, unless you have a really big cat, or unless the cat is, like, running at it, they're probably not going to knock it down. Maybe they will. But yeah, another way you can mess up the rings is by putting pages in that are, like, all stacked at the bottom or the top of the book. And so if you have everything up here, then these rings might open. And if you have everything down here, then these rings might open. And so these tabs are kind of a problem. And so the more tabs you have, the greater the risk that something happens to the rings of the binder. But, like, it's not a huge risk. And the more you use it, obviously, the more likely it is to be damaged. But normally people don't get one binder at a time. They'll get them in a set, because why wouldn't you order in bulk when the item will never just, like, break apart? Or at least, not within the first 10 years. It's not just gonna, like, fall apart. Whereas if you get, like, eggs or milk or meat or something, like, that's gonna go bad pretty quickly. Tips. What are my tips for this? Well, try it out. Start today. I mean, if you don't start today, maybe that means you already started. This is number 51, so maybe you're watching your way through the entire playlist. That would be so crazy. If you're doing that, thank you so much. Please leave a comment so I can thank you personally. Just probably add a little heart on that comment and be like, thank you. You've saved my channel. No, tips that actually help you out rather than just my ego. I feel like we already went through that. And if we didn't go through that, we could check another video. But I guess I have to say one tip before. Yeah. So I don't have an index, but I do have a content section. So have a content section. You just write down the title, and then write down the title on a tab, and then attach the tab to the top of the page, focused on that thing. There you go. Wow. The basics. Compendium. Is this a compendium? The heck is a compendium? So a compendium is a thing that gets talked about when people talk about Commonplace Book sometimes, although it's mostly one channel. So if you are focused on compendiums and commonplaces, probably just go check out that channel, because like I was saying earlier with the Codex, like, you could just go on it. You could basically own it. There are not a lot of people in this niche, okay? So, like, if there are only like 500 videos, and then you happen to make 100 videos about something, you're probably just going to be the person, and there's already a person who's making videos on compendiums. So, like, I don't know. I'm not saying they have, like, a monopoly on it, and I don't know if they even have 10 videos on it, but I believe there is one channel that's definitely doing that. So, you know, you can always check that out. Higher prestige. That channel definitely has higher prestige than mine, as of right now. We did pass 150 subscribers, so that's cool. And then basically right after that, 160 subscribers. So thank you. That's cool. I'm really hoping for 1,000 by the end of the year. It would be fun to get like 100. Well, what year is it? It's 2025. And so if we could get 1,000 by the end of the year, that would be great. In 2024, I think I was aiming for 100, and I think I might have gotten to that in like January. Like just the tiniest bit afterwards. But I'm not sure. I'm mostly just focused on the making videos aspect. Like I like to see the line go up. That's pretty fun. But I want to get these done so I can make the super cool stuff for next year. Because this is a lot closer to what I actually want to make, but it's not there yet. Like I'm prepping for a thing that I haven't showed you yet. Going a little crazy about it. So let's get on to the next thing. Use either. Or either. So if you have a Commonplace book or a Commonplace binder, you can write the stuff on the front if you want to make a fancy cover. Yeah, back of this looks a little weird. Because, you know, whenever I put this in a gross spot, it's going to pick up the stuff. So I need to figure out how to clean that off properly. Maybe you just wipe down all your stuff, or maybe you just only work at a clean surface. I don't really know what to say about that. I don't know. Like, I don't know what to do. So, the next one is how to commonplace while reading, which doesn't sound like something I'm going to be super good at presenting, at least compared to a bunch of the other videos. So, if you want to suffer through that, check out the next video. You're always free to skip videos in the playlist if you are somehow watching all of them. If this happens to be the first one you watched, that's kind of crazy. So, thank you for joining me today, and bye.